If you pick the wrong chart for your data, you're going to miss out on vital insights. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 visualizations you need to be using in your Adobe Analytics workspace. So let's start with number 1, and that's combo charts. Combo charts are ideal as a quick comparison of multiple data points. So in the example I've got here, you can see we've got one chart that shows visits and orders by month. And the idea here is to see if there are any trends. As visits increase, do we also see online orders increase? And also if visits decrease, do online orders go down? And you can see that in a nice visual format here. So February, the visits massively dipped and so did the orders. So there does look like there's some sort of correlation here. So making a combo chart is super easy. We just come over here on the left to Visualizations, select Combo, drag it in here, give your combo chart a name. So I'll recreate the one I did above. Then you want to look at your dimension. So in this situation, that is going to be month. Then what's the first thing we want to measure? We're going to look at visits. And that's going to be the bars. And then the line comparison. We've got 3 different options here. We can do a time comparison. So we could look at visits year over year if we selected that. We could do a custom function, or we can select a secondary metric that we'd like to compare against. And for this, we're going to select secondary metric and then online orders. And you'll see we can add more lines in if we want to, but for now we're just happy with that. So we click build, and you'll see it doesn't quite look the same here. The bars look the same, but the line looks super low and we can't really tell anything from that. So what we need to do is come over here to the settings gear and make sure we tick display dual axis. So what that's done now is that's added in this extra axis here where we can look at online orders measured on this scale rather than on this scale. So let's look at another way we can use combo charts. We can see if we're trending above or below the monthly average for visits. So we just need to select month. Visits again as our metric, but this time we look at the function. And then you'll see we've got loads of different functions here that we can choose from. For this one, we're interested in the mean, so the average. If we select that, then hit build. And what this line is now showing us is our average number of visits. So you can easily see which months are above and below average. So in this example, it does look like that last quarter of the year really does trend above average, but it looks like it's much quieter at the beginning of the year. So that there can just drive some actions. You can see when your quieter times are and your more popular times are. So if you like the look of combo charts, I'm going to put a link on the screen right now where you can go and watch a dedicated tutorial where I really dive in much deeper than what you see here. So let's move on to visualization number 2, and that is scatter plots. I like to use scatter plots to compare the impact of multiple metrics on a given dimension. For example, products or even countries that get low visits but high revenue. And in this example, you can see here, we're looking in particular at products. On this axis, we've got the number of visits to those products. Here, the number of online orders, and then the size of the bubble is the amount of online revenue. So the bigger the bubble, the more revenue we're generating. And what you can tell from something like this is, are there products we have that get a high number of visits but a low number of orders? Or are there products that get low number of visits but really high orders and strong revenue? If that's the case, we want to drive even more traffic to those product pages. So how do we build a visualization like this? Firstly, let me just delete these ones. You come to the left hand side, hit Visualizations, find the scatter chart, drag that in here, and you'll see at the moment we've got an error message, and that's because we need to come down to this freeform table and start building out the data. So we want to look at products. So let's bring in product name. We also want to see the number of visits to those products. And you'll see now the chart will start to update. We also want to see the number of online orders. And finally, we want to see the amount of revenue as well. So we just drag that in over here. Now, it doesn't look quite as similar as the other chart we did. So there's a couple of things we need to do here first. Let's filter out unspecified. And then if we come up to this settings gear here, you'll see there's a few different settings. And what we want to do is anchor the y-axis at 0. And now you can see we've got 0 as our point down here. and you can really start to see the outliers. So looking at this, there's one product that clearly stands out to me. It's not this outlier over here. It's actually this one here. So this blue product is one of the lowest in terms of visits, also the lowest in terms of online orders, but one of the major players in online revenue, because again, it's one of the bigger bubbles that you see. So I'd start to look deeper at that product and start to think, okay, if I can drive more visits to that page, can I get more orders and then ultimately more revenue? It looks like when people do order this product, they actually spend a lot. So could we start to get to a point where if we push this bubble to more over this scale, because we're driving more orders and visits, that ultimately we'll get a really big bubble that's showing there's a lot of revenue coming from that product. So now let's look at visualization number 3. So here we have a histogram, and histograms are perfect for looking at frequency distribution. How often do your customers order? How many orders do they usually place? Or how many times do users visit your website? These are all questions you can answer with histograms. And this histogram here is showing us, looking at the unique visitors, how many online orders do they place? And what we can see from this chart is 84.5%, so 85% of visitors only placed between 1 and 2 orders on our website last year. So it depends on your business. That might be a perfectly reasonable number. But if you're in the business of repeat purchasing, then you really wouldn't want to see numbers like that. You'd want to see the histogram looking a bit different, where there's a lot more repeat purchases further down here. So to build a histogram, again, come over to Visualisations, Histogram, drag that in, then choose the metric that you want to look at. So we'll go for online orders. Click on Show Advanced Settings. You can choose here your counting method. So we're quite happy with visitors. We want to look at the unique visitors and how many orders do they place. So if we click build, and there you have it. There's the histogram. There's a couple of slight differences that you see here. So earlier we looked at the percentages on this side, but now we have absolute numbers. So here you can see we've got 249,000 unique visitors who've placed between 1 and 2 orders last year. However, if we want to look at that instead of absolute numbers, but as percentages, just come over here to the settings gear and hit percentages. And now you'll see that this updates here, and you hover over and it's telling you a percentage of your unique visitors. You'll see there's also other settings here. So you can change your starting bucket. So if you didn't want to see from number 1, maybe we just wanted to see from 3 orders as the minimum. You'll see the histogram now changes and shows you just from 3 to 4 orders, 4 to 5. Because at the beginning here, the amount of people that place between 1 and 2 orders is so huge, it's harder to dive deeper and see what's going on here. And that's why we would increase our starting bucket so that we could start to see that more. If you like the look of histograms, make sure you watch the video that's appearing on screen now, and I will take you from A to Z on how to build histograms in various different scenarios. Visualization number 4 is the key metric summary. So these are ideal for highlighting a key metric and comparing it to a previous time. I love to put these at the top of my dashboard so the user instantly sees the key results, and then the visualizations below can tell the story. So straight away, you can imagine if you open this dashboard now, you can see, right, we've got some work to do. Everything is trending downwards. So taking this visits one as an example, you'll see that we're comparing visits from this month versus last month. We're halfway through the month, and that's why the number looks so different here. But the trend lines, the blue being this date range that we're looking at, and the grey being the previous month. You can see how things change over time. So to build a key metric summary, just come to Visualizations, select Key Metric Summary, drag that in. And then you've got a few different options here. You can select the metric you want to look at. So let's look at online revenue for this one. Choose the primary date range. So for this, let's look at last week and then compare it to 2 weeks ago. And you can also add a segment to this if you wish. So you could just look at customers from the US. But for now, we're happy looking at the whole site. So we like that. So we can just click build. And now you can see week over week, it's looking much better. We've got a 53% increase in online revenue last week versus 2 weeks ago. So there's a few different ways we can customize this visualization to meet your needs. Let's say, for example, I don't really want to shout about that 53%. I want this number to be the focal point, $3.3 million basically. That's something that looks really cool. We just hit the settings gear. And instead of emphasizing the percentage change, let's emphasize the number value. And now you can see the number value as the hero with the percentage increase here. But you can actually change that even further. So rather than seeing $3.3 million is what we've done in sales last week, what if we just wanted to see what the difference was? What was the dollar amount increase? Well, we can hit settings again, and now we can show the raw difference. So you can see here, it's showing week over week, we're up $1.1 million. But what if we wanted to see how this number compares to visits from search engines? Well, we can right click, duplicate the visualization. For ease, let's drag it next to it. Hit the pencil icon to edit it. It's changed our date range here, so let's just fix that. And we want to go to last week and compare it to 2 weeks ago. Then for the segment, let's drag in visits from search engines. Hit build. And now you have the data just for search engines. So for a like-for-like comparison, let's just show the raw difference. So there you go. So that's something, again, that would make us want to dig deeper with the visualizations below, because overall the websites had a $1.1 million increase, but from search engines, it's only 78,000 increase. So where else is this revenue coming from? And that's where we look at freeform tables below and really start answering those questions. Now let's take a look at the final visualization, visualization number 5. And here we're looking at maps. So maps are great when you want to show how a particular metric varies by geography. You can use this to inform your marketing decisions. Like if all your orders come from California, you could double down on that state. Or if you've got an event coming up in Minnesota, but you don't see many orders from there, you know that you need to start doing some real pre-event marketing to drive up interest in that area. So to create a map, you guessed it, go to Visualizations, drag in map, then drop in the metric that you want to look at. We'll start with orders for this. And you can look here at mobile, latitude and longitude, or just a geographic dimension. We'll stick with geographic for this example. Hit build. And there you have a map straight away. So zooming in now, we can see exactly where all of our orders are coming from in the US. And it looks like it's dominated by this California, Nevada region. So let's zoom in further. So it's not Nevada, it's all California. And as we zoom in more, you can start to see the individual cities and see that everything looks like it's coming from San Jose. So at the moment, the map's pretty boring. So we want to customize it and just make it a bit more visual. We just want to add a bit more color to it. So if we come over here to that settings gear, you've got a few different options. So you can change the map style from light to bright. See what that looks like. Still a bit boring by my standards. So let's try again and go to satellite maybe. That looks pretty cool. And then if we want to change the color theme, we could change that to greens, but greens blends in a bit much. We could change it to reds. So there you go. Reds now stands out a bit more. So the next thing you can do is look at the cluster radius. And what this cluster radius does is it focuses on the groupings. So the higher the cluster radius, the more it's going to group all of the little dots together in a location. So you can see now we've got a far less detailed map because it's grouping at a higher rate. But as we lower, we'll see more dots because we're grouping at a smaller rate. Still in this example, California absolutely dominates, but you can start to see areas quite clearly where there's very little to no coverage. But let's go back to this settings gear. Set the cluster radius back to the middle. And if you don't like the idea of bubbles, you can change it up a bit. We can tick heat map here. And now you start to see things in more of a heat map scale. So you can also make the map even bigger if you really want to zoom in more. So let's just click that there. And now you can see I've got a full screen view of my map. You can really zoom in and start to see exactly where it looks like everything's coming from. So I'm just using Adobe's demo account here, but you can start to see if you are a company that's got a real vast geography, how you can really zoom in on these individual areas. And this example here is showing that we're getting loads of orders from around this area. So this is where you might start to think about doing local advertising. Perhaps it makes so much sense to do a load of targeted advertising in this region of San Jose because that's where all of our orders are coming from. At the same time, you could think, right, there's loads coming from here. Why isn't there more coming from this Campbell region? Maybe there's a demand there that we haven't utilized yet. Visualizations are great if you want to tell a story or get a top-level view of your data. But if you want to dive deeper and draw even more insight, you need to master freeform tables. And you can do that by watching the video that's on screen right now. I'll see you in the next one.